Hey, so this is going to be something a little different from what I've ever done before. Lost Worlds. Just really going to give a little overview of the game, maybe, and then some discussion about it. The reason being, I can't play it solitaire. I just finished up playing last night, actually, an opposed game of it. So, and some of you, probably anyone looking at it has already actually played it at this point. I don't think many people are hunting this game down and want a lot of information about it. But I still figured out to give some views on it since I did play it recently. It's got very few rules. Basically this page, and then a little bit more here, and there's some multiplayer rules, another couple paragraphs of that. The way the game works is really, really simple, but it's completely ingenious as a design. Each player starts out on a specific page, and this is on a one-on-one scenario. There's special rules for the multiplayer, but you essentially start out in this position. And now, if I'm the skeleton, I pull this book and this character sheet out, and I hand the book to my opponent, and my opponent gives me his book, say, to work on. And I have a view of what my opponent is doing towards me. In this case, it's an extended range blocking. And I have to read to him a specific restriction, in this case, do only extended range next turn. That restricts the actions that I can take to only these. There's basically two prime sets, the extended range ones, and then there's your base actions. But within the base actions, you might be told only to do certain colors or not to do certain colors. If you have a shield, it might get broken and you can never do your blocks or protected attacks from then on with those weapons. Or with those, you can no longer do those actions anymore. So now, what's really clever here is I look at whatever action I want to take, and I look at a page number there. And that page will be an even numbered page. And unlike normal books, this has pages listed with odd numbers on the top and even numbers on the bottom. And every actual leaf is that way, every face of every leaf. So there'll be an odd numbered page on every page, as it were. So what I do is I turn to the page of the particular maneuver I want to take, and that'll be an even number. I set that, and I say, hey, I'm ready. And now my opponent is doing the same thing, and they'll say, hey, I'm ready too. And we reveal what number we're on. And here's the thing, I'd look up whatever number they report to me, again, an even number page, and that tells me what view I'm going to have at the end. So for example, if I picked up 34, which is a kick over here, and they picked, I don't know, let's say a 10, which is a high swing, I would end up on page 51. They would end up on a page showing their view of what happened to me. But now my kick would have kicked them off balance. I do a score, that's an amount of damage, to which I add whatever my damage modifier is. In this case, for kick, it's 0. So I would do no actual damage to them, but I'd force them to only do green or yellow, which means they have to kind of stand back up. Those are jumps, basically. Those are the jumps are the green and yellows, the shield block, and then some specials. And it gives a much more limited set of options that they have. And if I really understand the system well, I can try to work out patterns. Okay, and it's a combat game. You have a number of hit points to begin the game. This guy's really weak. He starts out with only 7. Some of them are fairly strong. For example, I don't know if I have them in my set. A friend of mine had a set that was more complete. But there's some bigger creatures like a manticore or a unicorn. There's a dragon which is only really able to be faced either by another dragon or by the multiplayer rules. And the multiplayer rules are really annoying because if you're being attacked by 2 people at once, you have to kind of keep track of where all their pages are at the same time, and what your influences are in respect to every one of them. Here's the Dragon character sheet. I have photocopies of all the sheets, but I don't have the actual character book for that one. So, it's a really ingenious system, matching that up. It's based on the Ace of Aces system, which is very similar in terms of the design. You pick an action, and you get this view of what the opponent's doing. And then there were some others like, damn, I don't remember what it's called, but there was a gunslinger one. Gunfight at the OK Corral or something like that was really, really unpopular, where you could kind of move through the buildings, and it handled that part of it in the book as well. And then there's weird ones like, don't ask why I have this, a Battletech one, lightsaber fencing, which can actually play in with the Lost Worlds as well. But I don't think the Battletech one works with it, which is why it's kind of odd that I have that here. I just bought a collection of them in bad shape, really. So, here's the thing. Great, great, cool idea, but when you come down to playing it, it comes down to feeling like a game of Rochambeau. With some strategy in it, which is to say that better players are going to beat you all the time because they really know what set of maneuvers to take. Not that it's always going to kill you, not that they're always going to be able to hit you or something, but they can take a maneuver that has high odds of putting them in a good position. Now, why it comes to Rochambeau is if you have a couple of players who are very good, there's a couple of paths you can kind of take. Do I dodge now? Well, there's a counter to that. So it becomes kind of okay, I know that he's liable to do this because that's one of the best moves out there to set yourself up. So here's the counter for that. And I have the choice of doing that or assuming he's going to know that I do that and take the counter for that. And, so it really comes down to almost this random situation. When you're playing for the first time, it's random and you don't know what the hell is going on. When you're playing later on, it has that same kind of random because it comes down to, okay, I know what his decisions are, and it comes down to really just, is it rock, paper, or scissors? That's a shame of it because it is really, really a cool system. I wanted to go into, I know there are some expansions and some people have done some stuff where you can play kind of in a dungeon using these combat systems. And again, it just doesn't really serve, that serves great as a scenario generator, but it doesn't really serve as a good system to handle, combat in a role-playing environment. First of all, there really aren't that many options, and when you're doing role-playing, you kind of feel like there should be a game master running the thing, and you're making this challenge where you have all these different, you can basically do whatever your imagination is your limit for. So, you might set a trap or something, and that's just not part of this. But there are some interesting aspects with some of the characters. You have, it was definitely a cute little fad at its time. You have people who have throwing weapons like this guy. You have some pretty big, tough characters. The skeleton can pick up bones and regenerate himself. You have the samurai who has special head-cutting attacks, but only works against other samurai. This guy can charm. There's a wizard that I didn't show, and a ninja. Each of these comes with a set of special abilities, which became kind of a collectible item because each character came with 3 of these, and I think 2 of them were fairly common, and they, at least with the magician, they were released in the Book of Red Magic, which was just like gave you all the spells except for a few really rare ones that I think you still had to go out and collect by buying the books for, essentially. But it was an interesting thing. It's a cool little thing because you can play it just about anywhere. You can be sitting on the plane and playing it. You can be in the car, preferably not driving at the time. But it's definitely an interesting idea. Overall, I would say as a game, it's probably kind of a dead end situation, because there really was this, okay, once you reached a certain point and knew how to play it correctly and knew what your options were, it did come down to rock, paper, scissors. And before that, it was kind of exciting learning, what was working and what wasn't. Some characters are different, or all the characters are really different, but some of them have reasons that you'd want to do different actions with. So, for example, one that's very powerful, let's see where he is, although he doesn't terribly seem it, is this dwarf with the axe, because he has some very, very different abilities with his combat. And the same with the girl with the quarterstaff. Maybe has speed bonuses on other people, is able to get the drop on them in terms of her. With him, he's got some very weird kind of, what seems like a limited set of actions. He's got a tiny set of actions. I don't know if you can see this, but he's actually quite potent in those. So what's problem there, though, is once somebody figures him out, he becomes very easy to defeat because he's got such a limited set. He's got a good couple patterns, but it's much, much simpler to get with that. Anyway, all in all, I would say it served a really good purpose in terms of, if you're sitting in downtime in a game or between games or something, you got knocked out of a game somebody else is, and you're waiting for the rest to finish up quickly, you can play a couple of these, just like you'd play a couple hands of cards or something maybe. But beyond that, I wouldn't suggest it at all as something to hunt down. Anyway, like I said, this was something different. It's just a mini review, basically. Take a look at the system and talk about it briefly. I may do that with a couple of other things. Got somebody playing with me playing some things that I probably will not get to Solitaire, and certainly not in the near future. So I figured it would be cool to just do some coverage on them.